So this is great. So I'm wondering, you've mentioned in the beginning how you first came to constellation work, and then you introduced yourself to the African tradition. So now when you work with both, what is the role of a constellation method when you combine it with the ancestral work shamanically, or in a different tradition?
So I wouldn't necessarily say that I work that strongly with the African tradition. I would say that it informs my practice in terms of my understanding, and it is my personal support and resourcing practice, the patla. I do work sometimes with the patla, but I'm also very aware of sort of cultural appropriation, and you know, it's quite complicated. Taking or working in a tradition that belongs to another culture and other people. So I'm really aware of that. So I would say that my work is predominantly family and systems constellations, and the way that the African traditions inform is through my understanding of the ancestral field. So I don't bring a lot of the African work in. Even every now and then I will do a patla, just because it's needed, and I feel you know, my ancestors ask for it, and that is the medicine that I'm trained in. It's basically, it's like, it's, you know, some people confuse it with praying to the ancestors. It's not praying to the ancestors. It's speaking to them. It's being in community with them. It's being in communion with them. And there's still, you know, there's still a belief in God and creation, a source, the Great Spirit, whatever you choose to call it. It's not a worship of the ancestors. It's a request for their support and for their blessing and their gifts. Yeah, so I think it deeply informs my understanding of constellation work, but so does narrative therapy. So I sit with these two extremes, the one that is extremely rule and structure based and extremely, you know, this is the way we do it. And then this more constructivist way of seeing the world, where I'm mostly interested in people's individual experiences and not in what is a complete truth. So my constellation work doesn't look like Hellinger's work at all. In some ways it does, because his early work is very deeply informed, I think, through the African traditions, especially if you look at it at the classical constellations, where you sort of had the problem image and then it was set up into the solution image. You know, sort of, we do this and then we move everybody into their right positions. You know, this is very close to the African traditions. You seat people in their correct positions, because there is a correct position for people to be in. Whereas in a more constructivist, you know, constructivist approach, there's definitely more space for, well, what is your personal experience? How does it feel for you? What's happening in your body? So in a way, I'm dancing between these two extremes with the constellation work. But yeah, I mean, that's it's almost like, again, the bridging of the old and the new. It's the bridging of the old patriarchal system with the emergent future that's unfolding. And how do we do that? How do we respect and honor our ancestors and their ways, and at the same time live in a world that's completely changing, and where we don't have these traditional roles anymore. We don't have these gender stereotypes anymore, or we have them, but you know, things are changing so rapidly. And how do we meet that? Yeah.
Thank you. And you've mentioned the word dancing couple of times now, and you, in the beginning, you said that this was one of the things that really attracted you in the African tradition, and I know that you've started. You found a way how to combine that with the constellation work.
Mm.
Tell me about that.
Mm. Well, you know, it started very, very organically, and really just as we had been constellating. We were out in Towerland Wilderness. We were on a retreat, a constellation retreat. I'd been constellating. It was all trainees, facilitating trainees. We'd been constellating for days, and we just all felt like a good dance. And Sean Palmer happened to be there, and she put on some music, and she facilitated a dance for us in the evening outside under the stars. And it was just what was needed. And in that moment, the two of us started talking about the possibility of using the dance as a resource for the constellation work, initially to warm up the body, to get the body ready for a representation, and then also to integrate and to process some of what was happening in the constellations afterwards. So originally we just juxtaposed it. We started with dance, did constellation work, dance, but it just started merging. And what we've sort of developed in the last 4 years is a full integration of the two, which we've called Ancestral Connections. And I mean, I think it comes out of a love for dance, but also just a realization that for me, sitting in days and days of workshops, I mean, when I do a 5-day training, my body is broken afterwards. All that sitting and standing and sitting and you know, I need to do a fair amount of body work and a lot of care of my body to manage these kind of sitting scenarios. Whereas with the Ancestral Connections, we just process what's happening in the body immediately. Simultaneously now, even, you know, sometimes we still work with the warm up and the integration at the end, but it's really quite amazing to be able to embody what's happening, or to embody the ancestors in the dance. I mean, also because dance is a universal language, you know, and we can speak right back to very early ancestors through dance. And everybody has a dancer inside of them. And I mean, it's not only dance. I mean, we also work with movement, we work with storytelling, we work with a lot of the sort of more ancient traditions that connect us into our ancestral lineages. And it's fun, you know, a little bit more of that sort of fun factor and a bit of laughter, and there can even be joy. And a lot of the focus that we have in this work is really on the resources and on strengthening and embodying. And we can meet extremely traumatic moments and extremely traumatized ancestors and stay present in our body and not have the difficulty of a re-traumatization or or disassociation or freezing, because we have that resource of the movement to move with whatever's emerging and to move, to keep it in movement, and to keep yourself grounded. So, I mean, I think more than anything, I just love it. I enjoy it. I enjoy the workshops. The results are incredible. So what people experience in movement, like 5 rhythms and movement medicine and these different conscious dance forms, is just sort of tenfold, because we now adding the ancestral and the constellation elements, so we can really move into the field and move into these really deep and profound spaces and have incredible results. So it's deep work, but it works. So yeah, that's really my passion at the moment. Yeah.